What if your first breath each morning could chase every shadow of fear away? Imagine raising your voice in a declaration of courage before the world awakens. Discover how Psalm 27 can transform dawn into a fortress of unwavering trust. Psalm 27 is a declaration of faith and confidence in God's presence, power, and protection. It reminds us that no matter the trials we face, the Lord is our light and salvation. When you wake up each morning, do you begin with fear or with faith? Do you open your eyes and see the worries of yesterday or the mercies of God that are new today? The first moments of your day set the course for everything that follows. And Psalm 27 invites you to start with trust, not terror, with courage, not confusion. The psalmist writes, "The Lord is my light," and remember David in the cave, finding unwavering courage when he declared, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. My salvation, whom shall I fear?" And with those words, he dismisses every shadow of doubt. Light chases away darkness. Salvation drives out despair. Strength overcomes weakness. This is what Psalm 27 proclaims before the demands of life, rushing like a flood before the enemy whispers his lies, before the world tries to shake your peace. This psalm lifts your soul to higher ground. It calls you to look up and remember who God is. He is not a distant observer. He is your defender. He is not an occasional helper. He is your eternal refuge. David the May, you feel the warmth of God's presence kindling your courage as each new day begins. Writer of this psalm, he knew what it was like to be pursued by enemies, to face impossible odds, to experience rejection and loneliness, and yet his confidence in God was unshaken. He did not say, "The Lord might be my salvation," or "I hope he is my stronghold." No, he declared it with certainty, "The Lord is my light and my salvation." That is the boldness of faith. That is the kind of confidence that transforms your mornings, your days, and your life. So when you wake up before your feet even touch the floor, let Psalm 27 be on your lips. Let it be the banner. Imagine standing firm on a rock of faith, unmoved by the storms that rage around you over your day. Instead of waking up to worry, wake up to worship. Instead of dreading the unknown, declare the truth. "The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? The world may shake, but God's word stands firm." Let your first thought each morning be not of trouble, but of triumph. Because with God as your light, salvation, and stronghold, whom shall you fear? The world is filled with uncertainty. But Psalm 27 gives us stability. Every day we wake up to a world that feels increasingly unstable. The news is filled with, "Take heart. Your stronghold is the Lord himself, and his light cannot be broken." Conflict, economies rise and fall, relationships are tested, and personal struggles seem never-ending. We don't know what the day will bring: an unexpected crisis, a difficult conversation, a new challenge that we feel unprepared to face. But Psalm 27 anchors us in something greater than the shifting sands of this world. It points us to the unshakable foundation of God's presence and promise. David writes, "The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" A stronghold is a place of safety, a fortress that cannot be easily. Recall the dawn breaking after the darkest night. God's mercy is new every morning. Overthrown in ancient times, cities built strongholds to protect themselves from invading armies. But David wasn't trusting in walls of stone. He was trusting in the living God. And that same God is our refuge today. When everything around us feels unpredictable, God remains the same. He is not caught off guard by the events of our lives. He does not panic when we face difficulties. He is steady, unmoving, and sovereign over all things. That is why starting your day with Psalm 27 is so powerful. It reminds you that no matter what you may face, you remember David in the cave, finding unwavering courage when he declared, "The Lord is my light and my salvation," are held by the one who never fails. Imagine stepping into your day with that kind of confidence. While others are consumed by fear, you stand firm in faith while the world is restless. but you walk in peace. You don't have to be ruled by the headlines, by the uncertainties of tomorrow, or by the fears that try to take hold of your heart. You have a stronghold, a fortress that cannot be shaken, and that fortress is the Lord, that Himself. So before you check the news, before you listen to the voices of worry, listen to the voice of truth. May you feel the warmth of God's presence kindling your courage as each new day begins. Declare Psalm 27 over. Your days stand firm in the stability of God's presence. Because when He is your stronghold, no storm can move you, no trouble can shake you, and no uncertainty can steal your peace. Fear is a thief, but faith is a fortress. Every day, fear tries to creep into our hearts. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of what might happen tomorrow. It starts in the quiet moments, whispering doubts before the day has even begun. But Psalm 27 gives us the weapon. We need to fight back. It reminds us that fear has no. Imagine standing firm on a rock of faith, unmoved by the storms that rage around you. Power. Where faith in God stands strong, David declared, "Whom shall I fear? Of whom shall I be afraid?" This was not the voice of a man without problems. David had real enemies, real battles, real dangers. But he refused to let fear control him. Why? Because he knew that the presence of God was greater than any opposition he faced. His confidence wasn't in his own ability, but in the unshakable power of the Lord. Fear steals your joy, your peace, your purpose. It paralyzes you, making you hesitate when God is calling you forward. Take heart. Your stronghold is the Lord Himself, and His light cannot be broken. It makes mountains out of molehills and magnifies the problem instead of magnifying the God who is bigger than the problem. But faith builds a fortress around your heart when you wake up and start the day with Psalm 27. You are making a decision. I will not live in fear today. I will walk by faith. I will trust in the Lord, my stronghold and my salvation. Think about how different your day could be if instead of giving fear a foothold, you gave faith the first word, what if? Instead of dreading what might go wrong, you declare, recall the dawn breaking after the darkest night. God's mercy is new every morning. That God is in control, what if? Instead of running from the battle, and you faced it with the confidence that the Lord is fighting for you, that's the power of Psalm 27. It shifts your focus from the size of your fear to the greatness of your God. It reminds you that no enemy, no difficulty, no uncertainty is greater than the Lord who walks beside you. So let faith rise. Let the fortress of trust in God stand strong, because fear may come knocking, but when your heart is anchored in Him, it has no place to stay. Psalm 27 is a call to unwavering trust. Remember David in the cave, finding unwavering courage when he declared, "The Lord is my light and my salvation." In the face of adversity, life is filled with challenges, some expected, others that hit us like a storm in the night. There are seasons when it feels like everything is working against us, when obstacles seem insurmountable and when the enemy whispers, you won't make it through this one. But this psalm was not written for people who have it easy. It was written for those in the heat of battle, those who are facing struggles beyond their strength, and those who need a rock to stand on when everything else is shaking. David writes, though an army may you feel the warmth of God's presence, kindling your courage as each new day begins, and camp against me my heart shall not fear. Though war arise against me, yet I will be confident. What kind of confidence is this? This is not human optimism or self-reliance. This is a bold, immovable trust in the living God. David did not deny that the battle was real. He simply refused to let the battle define him. His trust in God was greater than the size of the opposition. How do you respond when adversity comes? When unexpected news shakes your plans, when people turn against you, when the way forward seems blocked, do you panic or do you imagine standing firm on a rock of faith, unmoved by the storms that rage around, and you press into the presence of God? Psalm 27 teaches us that trust is a choice. It is choosing to believe that even when the battle rages, God is still in control. It is choosing to remember, but that no situation is bigger than the power of God. Every morning you have a decision to make. Will you step into the day with fear or with faith? Will you let adversity push you away from God or push you closer to Him? Psalm 27 reminds us that trust is not based on what we see, it's based on who God is. And He is faithful, He is powerful, He is to take heart. Your stronghold is the Lord Himself, and His light cannot be broken. Stronghold that never crumbles. So when the battle comes, don't retreat. Stand firm when the enemy surrounds you. Don't give in fear. Lift up your eyes to the one who fights for you, because when you trust in the Lord, even in the face of adversity, you will not be shaken. The psalm reminds us that we are not alone. There are moments in life when we feel abandoned, moments when even those closest to us don't seem to understand our struggles. We face battles that others cannot see, burdens that weigh on our hearts, and fears that recall the dawn breaking after the darkest night. God's mercy is new every morning. Whisper to us in silence. But Psalm 27 reminds us of a powerful truth. Even if the whole world turns against us, God remains faithful. David writes in verse 10, "For my father and my mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me in." Think about that for a moment. The love of a proud parent is one of the strongest loves in the world. And yet David understood that even if the most foundational human relationships failed him, God never would. His presence is constant, His love is unshakable, and His faithfulness is... Never remember David in the cave, finding unwavering courage when he declared, "The Lord is my light and my salvation." In question, loneliness is one of the enemy's greatest weapons. He wants you to believe that you are isolated, forgotten, and unseen. He wants you to think that no one cares about what you're going through. But Psalm 27 breaks that lie apart. It tells you that even in the darkest moments, you are not alone. The God who created the heavens is standing beside you. The Lord of all is walking with you. You may feel like no one understands your pain, but God sees every tear. You may feel like you have to fight your battles alone, but God goes before you. May you feel the warmth of God's presence kindling your courage as each new day begins. You may feel rejected by people, but you are chosen by Him. His presence is not based on how you feel, it is based on His eternal promise. So when you wake up in the morning, remind yourself of this truth. I am never alone before the world speaks. Doubt into your heart. Let Psalm 27 speak. Faith before fear tells you that you are forgotten. Let God's word remind you that you are His. No matter who walks away, no matter who misunderstands you, no matter how lonely the road may seem, the Lord will take you in, and that is enough. Every morning we imagine standing firm on a rock of faith, unmoved by the storms that rage around you. Wake up with choices. The world demands our attention from the moment we open our eyes. Notifications, buzz emails, pile up worries from yesterday, creep back in, and our minds begin to race toward the demands of the day. But Psalm 27 reminds us that before we do anything else, we must seek the presence of God. David writes in verse 4, "One thing have I asked of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in His temple." Notice that David, take heart. Your stronghold is the Lord Himself, and His light cannot be broken. I didn't ask for riches, power, or an easier life. He asked for one thing, to be with God above all else. He longed to dwell in God's presence. He understood that nothing in this world could satisfy his soul like the presence of the Lord. How different would our lives be if we made that our first priority instead of reaching for our phones? What if we reached for the Word of God instead of filling our minds with news and distractions? What if we filled them with truth instead of starting the day in stress? What if we started it in? Recall the dawn breaking after the darkest night. God's mercy is new every morning. Surrender, seeking God first, doesn't mean ignoring responsibilities. It means anchoring yourself in Him before anything else. It means recognizing that no amount of planning, effort, or control can replace the wisdom and peace that come from being in His presence. Psalm 27 calls us to realign our priorities when we seek God. First, we see the day differently. We don't walk into it with anxiety. We walk into it with assurance. We don't react to problems with fear. We respond with faith. We don't chase after the things that fade. We pursue the one who is eternal. So remember David in the cave, finding unwavering courage when he declared, "The Lord is my light and my salvation." Let this be your prayer. Every morning, Lord, before I do anything else, I seek you. Before I make any decision, I seek your wisdom. Before I face the world, I rest in your presence, because when you start your day seeking him first, everything else falls into place. We live in a world that constantly tells us to rely on ourselves. Society teaches us to be self-sufficient, to push through difficulties with sheer willpower, to stand strong in our own abilities. But if we're honest, we all reach moments when our strength isn't enough. We come to the May. You feel the warmth of God's presence kindling your courage as each new day begins. End of our endurance faced with problems too big to solve, burdens too heavy to carry, and battles too fierce to fight on our own. That's why Psalm 27 is so powerful. It redirects our confidence away from ourselves and back to the Lord, the true source of strength. David writes in verse 1, "The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" A stronghold is a place of defense, a refuge, a place where the enemy cannot reach. David wasn't boasting in his own might, and he was declaring that his strength came from the Lord he had faced. Imagine standing firm on a rock of faith, unmoved by the storms that rage around you. Lions and bears in the wilderness stood before Goliath with nothing but a sling and fled from King Saul's relentless pursuit. But through every challenge, David knew that his power was not in him, his weapons, his skill, or his wisdom. It was in the presence of God. How often do we try to fight life's battles in our own strength? How often do we carry the weight of our struggles alone, exhausted and overwhelmed? But Psalm 27 reminds us that we don't have to. The same God who upheld David upholds us today. The same God who strengthened him in the "Take heart, your stronghold is the Lord himself, and his light cannot be broken." Wilderness strengthens us in our weakness. So when you wake up in the morning, don't step into the day relying on yourself. Step into it relying on God. Don't depend on your own understanding. Depend on his wisdom. Don't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Place it in his hands. Because when the Lord is your stronghold, you don't have to be afraid. When he is your strength, you won't be shaken. And when he is your source, you will have everything you need to face whatever comes your way. There is a hunger in every human heart, a longing. Recall the dawn breaking after the darkest night. God's mercy is new every morning. That nothing in this world can fully satisfy people chase after wealth, success, relationships, and pleasure, hoping that these things will fill the emptiness inside. But no matter how much we attain, there is always a deeper craving, an unfulfilled desire that nothing on earth can satisfy. Psalm 27 reveals the answer to that longing. It is found in the presence of God. David writes in verse 4, "One thing have I asked of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze." Remember David in the cave, finding unwavering courage when he declared, "The Lord is my light and my salvation," upon the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. Notice what David is saying here. He had been a warrior, a king, a man of great victories, but the one thing he desired above all else was to be with God. He didn't just want protection, success, or blessings. He wanted the presence of the Lord. What about us? Do we wake up each day with that same desire? Or do we rush into the day filling our time with everything but God? The truth is, we were created for his presence. That is where peace is found. That is where joy is restored. That is. May you feel the warmth of God's presence kindling your courage as each new day begins, where our deepest needs are met to dwell in God's presence. Doesn't mean we have to live in a church building or isolate ourselves from the world. It means living in constant communion with Him, seeking Him first in all things, and making Him the center of our lives. It means waking up in the morning and saying, Lord, above everything else, I want to know you more today. The world offers temporary distractions, but only God offers eternal fulfillment. The more we seek Him, the more we realize that He is the treasure our hearts have been longing for. All imagine standing firm on a rock of faith, unmoved by the storms that rage around you along. So make it your prayer each morning, Lord, let me dwell in your presence, let me see your beauty, let me walk with you today, because in His presence we find everything our souls. I truly need. No one is exempt from difficulty. Trials come in many forms: unexpected loss, financial struggles, broken relationships, sickness, or spiritual battles that wear us down. There are seasons when the storms of life seem relentless, so we feel vulnerable and exposed, longing for a place of safety. But Psalm 27 gives us a promise. God Himself is our shelter. Take heart. Your stronghold is the Lord Himself, and His light cannot be broken. Hiding place in the midst of trouble, David declares in verse 5, for He will hide me in His shelter. In the day of trouble, He will conceal me under the cover of His tent. He will lift me high up on a rock. These are not empty words. They are the testimony of a man who had walked through the fire and seen God's faithfulness firsthand. David had fled for his life, lived in caves, and faced enemies who wanted to destroy him, but through it all, he knew that God was his true refuge, not a fortress of stone, not the armies of Israel, but the presence of the recall, the dawn breaking after the darkest night. God's mercy is new every morning. Almighty, we too need a place to run when life becomes overwhelming, and that place is not found in our own strength and distractions or in the false securities of this world. It is found in God alone. He is our shelter when anxiety tries to take over. He is our hiding place when I feel attacked by fear. He lifts us up when the waves of life threaten to pull us under, but here's the key: we must run to Him. A shelter only protects those who enter it. A stronghold only secures those who take refuge inside. That is why we must start each. Remember David in the cave, finding unwavering courage when he declared, "The Lord is my light and my salvation." Today, by placing ourselves under His covering before we face the world, we must step into the shelter of His Word, His promises, and His presence. So when trouble comes, don't stand. Outside in the storm, run to the one who offers safety. When fear tries to overtake you, don't fight it alone. Let God hide you under the shadow of His wings, because in Him you are secure, protected, and lifted. High above the storm we live. In a world that values speed, we want answers now. Solutions immediately and blessings without delay, but God does not operate on human made. You feel the warmth of God's presence kindling your courage as each new day begins. Timetables. His ways are higher than ours, and His timing is always perfect. That's why Psalm 27 ends with a powerful instruction. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. Waiting is not easy. It can feel frustrating, even painful. When we don't see immediate answers to our prayers, we cry out to God for healing, for breakthrough, for direction. And sometimes His response is not yes or no, but wait. And in those moments, the enemy whispers the doubts: has God forgotten you? Does He really care? Will He ever come through? Imagine standing firm on a rock of faith, unmoved by the storms that rage around you. But Psalm 27 reminds us that waiting is not wasted time. It is a time of strengthening, of deepening our trust, of preparing us for what's ahead. David understood this. He had been anointed king as a young man, but he spent years running from Saul. Before he ever sat on the throne, he knew what it meant to wait on God's promises. Yet through all the delays, the hardships, and the long seasons of uncertainty, he learned to trust that God was working even when he couldn't see it. Waiting on the Lord does not mean sitting idly by, it means actively. Take heart. Your stronghold is the Lord himself, and his light cannot be broken. Trusting him, it means continuing to pray even when you don't see the answer yet. It means choosing faith over frustration, worship over worry, and patience over panic. It means believing that God is good, even in the waiting. So if you're in a season of delay, do not lose heart. Do not let impatience push you toward your own solutions. Instead, strengthen your heart in the Lord. Hold on to his promises. Keep seeking him. Keep trusting him. Because those who wait on the Lord will never be disappointed, and in his perfect time he will answer. He recalled the dawn breaking after the darkest night. God's mercy is new every morning. I will move, and he will fulfill every promise he has spoken over your life. Life is a battlefield every day. We face struggles, some external, some internal. We fight against discouragement, temptation, fear, and the pressures of this world. At times it can feel like we are surrounded on every side with no way out. But Psalm 27 reminds us that victory does not come from our own strength. It comes from trusting in the Lord. David writes in verse 6, "And now my head shall be lifted up above my enemies all around me, and I will offer in his tent sacrifices with remembered David in the cave, finding unwavering courage when he declared, 'The Lord is my light and my salvation. Shouts of joy I will sing and make melody to the Lord.'" Notice the confidence in his words. He doesn't say, maybe I'll be victorious or hopefully I'll make it through. He declares with certainty that God will lift him up, that he will overcome, and that his response will be praise. This is not blind optimism. It is faith. It is the kind of trust that knows God has already won the battle before the fight even begins. It is the confidence that says no. No matter what I see, no matter how fierce the opposition, I belong to the Lord. And may you feel the warmth of God's presence kindling your courage as each new day begins, will bring me through. So often we approach life feeling defeated before we even begin. We let fear convince us that the battle is too big. We let past failures tell us that we are not strong enough. But Psalm 27 calls us to lift our eyes and remember who fights for us. If God is for us, who can stand against us? If he has already promised victory, why should we live in fear? Victory is not about avoiding battles. It's about knowing who stands beside you in the fight. It's about walking forward in faith, knowing that God has already gone. Imagine standing firm on a rock of faith, unmoved by the storms that rage around you. Before you, it's about worshiping. Before the breakthrough, praising. Before the answer comes, and standing firm even when the enemy tries to shake you. So today, no matter what opposition you face, declare what David declared: "My head shall be lifted up." Not because of your strength, but because of his. Not because you have all the answers, but because you trust in the one who does. And when victory comes, and it will come, your response will be worship, because you will know that it was the Lord who fought for you all along. Fear is a thief. It steals. Joy, take heart. Your stronghold is the Lord himself, and his light cannot be broken. Cripples faith and keeps us from walking in the fullness of God's plan. It whispers lies, magnifies problems, and tries to convince us that we are alone in our struggles. But Psalm 27 begins with a powerful declaration that silences fear. Before it even has a chance to speak, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" Light and darkness cannot exist in the same space. When light enters a room, darkness disappears. That is what happens when we walk with God. His presence drives out fear. David understood this. He had been surrounded. Recall the dawn breaking after the darkest night. God's mercy is new every morning. By enemies, betrayed by those close to him. and faced countless dangers. Yet he could declare with boldness, "Whom shall I fear?" Not because his problems weren't real, but because his God was greater. What about you? What fears are trying to hold you back? Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the future. Whatever it is, it cannot stand in the presence of God. The moment you place your trust in Him, His light exposes fear for what it really is, an empty threat with no power over a child of God. But here's the key. You must stay remember David in the cave, finding unwavering courage when he declared, "The Lord is my light and my salvation." Light you must choose each day to fill your mind with His truth. Instead of the enemy's lies, you must begin every morning with the declaration, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Fear has no hold on me." So the next time fear tries to rise up in your heart, remind yourself of this truth. The same God who was with David is with you. The same light that guided him will guide you. And when God is your light, darkness has no place in your life. Walk boldly, walk with confidence, because the Lord is your salvation. May you feel the warmth of God's presence, kindling your courage as each new day begins. You fear. There are moments in life when we wonder if God is listening. We pray, but the answer seems delayed. We cry out, but heaven feels silent. Doubts creep in. Does God really hear me? Does He see what I'm going through? But Psalm 27 gives us an assurance that we can silence every doubt. God not only hears us, but He responds. David writes in verse 7 here, "O Lord, when I cry aloud, be gracious to me and answer me." This is not a distant or half-hearted prayer. This is the desperate cry of someone who knows that only God can help, and David knew. Imagine standing firm on a rock of faith, unmoved by the storms that rage around you. Something powerful. God listens to the cries of His children. Think about this. David, a king, a warrior, a man after God's own heart, still cried out to the Lord. He wasn't ashamed to. He bring his needs before God. He didn't try to handle everything on his own. He knew that the most powerful thing he could do was to lift his voice in prayer. How often do we struggle in silence? How often do we carry burdens that God never intended for us to bear alone? Psalm 27 reminds us that we don't have to when we call upon the Lord. He hears us when we cry out to take heart. Your stronghold is the Lord Himself, and His light cannot be broken. And He moves on our behalf. He may not always answer in the way we expect or in the timing we desire, but He is never dead to our prayers. So let this be your confidence today. God hears you. He hears every whispered prayer, every desperate plea, every unspoken burden of your heart. And because He hears, you can trust that He is already working. You may not see it yet, but He is moving behind the scenes. His timing is perfect, and His answers are. All is good. So don't stop praying. Don't stop crying out to Him. Keep seeking, keep knocking, keep believing. Recall the dawn breaking after the darkest night. God's mercy is new every morning, because the God who heard David hears you, and He is faithful to answer. One of the greatest fears a person can experience is the fear of being abandoned, whether it's the pain of rejection, the loss of a loved one, or the loneliness that creeps in during difficult seasons. We all long for the assurance that we are not alone, but Psalm 27 gives us a promise that stands firm even when everything else in life shifts. David writes in verse 10, "For my father and my mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me in." Think about that. Even if the remembered David in the cave, finding unwavering courage when he declared, "The Lord is my light and my salvation." Closest people in our lives were to leave us. God never will. His love is not conditional. His presence is not temporary. He is not like people who may change, disappoint, or walk away. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. David knew what it felt like to be forsaken. He had been pursued by enemies, betrayed by friends, and even misunderstood by his own family. But in the midst of it all, he held on to this truth. God had never left him. That same promise is for you today. Maybe you felt forgotten. Maybe you've been through seasons where you feel the warmth of God's presence kindling your courage as each new day begins. Seemed like no one cared. Maybe you wondered if God has turned away. But the truth of Psalm 27 is this: He is still with you. He has not abandoned you, and He never will. When life gets difficult, when relationships break, when loneliness tries to take over, stand on this promise: the Lord will take me in. When people fail, God remains. When circumstances change, He stays the same. When everything else is uncertain, His love is unwavering. So no matter what you're facing today, and take heart, you are never alone. The God who walked with David walks with you. The Imagine, standing firm on a rock of faith, unmoved by the storms that rage around you. God who was faithful then is faithful now, and He will never, never abandon His children. Hope is a powerful thing. It gives strength in times of struggle, light in moments of darkness, and endurance when life becomes overwhelming. But the question is, where is your hope placed? If it is in people, they may disappoint. If it is in wealth, it may vanish. If it is in circumstances, they may change. But Psalm 27 calls us to place our hope in the only one who never fails. Our God, David declares in verse 13, I believe that I shall look upon the take heart. Your stronghold is the Lord Himself, and His light cannot be broken. The goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Notice the confidence in His words. He wasn't just hoping for something vague or uncertain. He was declaring that he would see God's goodness in at his lifetime. His hope wasn't based on emotions or temporary situations. It was anchored in the character of God. And that same hope is available to us today, no matter what challenges we face, no matter how long the battle seems to last. We can stand firm knowing that God's goodness is not a distant dream, it is a reality. For recall the dawn breaking after the darkest night. God's mercy is new every morning, and those who trust in Him. But here's the key: I choose to believe. David says, I believe that I shall see. Faith is not just about feeling hopeful when things are going well. It is about trusting in God's faithfulness. Even when the road is hard, it is about declaring, I will see His goodness, even before the breakthrough comes. So today, lift your head. Refuse to be discouraged. Stand on the promise that your God is good, that He is working all things for your good, and that your future is secure in His hands. The world, remember David in the cave, finding unwavering courage when he declared, the Lord is my light and my salvation. May be uncertain, but your hope in Him is unshakable. Keep believing, keep trusting, because just as David declared, you will see the goodness of the Lord in your life. So Psalm 27 is more than just words on a page. It is a declaration of faith, a reminder of God's presence, and an anchor for the soul. It teaches us to start our day with confidence, not in ourselves, but in the Lord. It calls us to seek His presence, trust in His protection, and stand firm in the knowledge that He will never abandon us. It reminds us that may you feel the warmth of God's presence kindling your courage as each new day begins, has no power where God's light shines, that He hears every cry, and that His timing is always perfect. So as you step into each new day, let Psalm 27 be your foundation when fear tries to creep in. Declare, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear when life feels overwhelming? Remember, He will hide me in His shelter in the day of trouble. When you are tempted to give up, hold on to the truth. I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are not without hope. The same God who was imagined standing firm on a rock of faith, unmoved by the storms that rage around you. Faithful to David is faithful to you. So walk forward in faith, knowing that your victory, your strength, and your future are secure in Him. Wait on the Lord. Trust in His promises. And above all, never stop seeking Him. May you walk into each day anchored in His light and unshakable in His love.